Have you ever felt like a deer caught in headlights when trying to strike up a conversation? Awkward silences got you sweating? Well, my friend, those days are over.
Yes.
You heard that right. And in this video, I'm going to show you how to manage a conversation with practically anyone and create a self-sustaining relationship with them in just 5 simple steps. I will also break down how to apply these steps in not only a social setting, but a formal setting, too, starting with step 1. Step 1. Overcome the fear. All right, let's tackle the elephant in the room first. The fear of starting a conversation. We've all been there, palms sweating, heart racing, and an overwhelming urge to make like a tree and leave. But here's the thing. That fear is totally normal, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Even the most extroverted of extroverts have felt that way at some point. The good news is, starting a conversation is just a skill, like riding a bike or learning a new language. And like any skill, it can be developed and refined over time with practice and patience. Think about it. When you first learned to ride a bike, you probably fell off a few times, right? But you didn't just give up and decide to walk everywhere. Nope, you got back on that saddle and kept trying until you nailed it. The same principle applies to conversations. Every time you step out of your comfort zone and initiate a chat, even if it's a little awkward at first, you're building that muscle. And before you know it, you'll be a conversation ninja, dodging those awkward silences like a pro. Now, I know what you're thinking, but what if I say the wrong thing or make a fool of myself? Well, let me ask you this. What's the worst that could really happen? Someone might think you're a little quirky? Big deal. Chances are they won't even remember it a week from now. And who knows, your faux pas might even break the ice and lead to a hilarious bonding moment. The key is to stop putting so much pressure on yourself. Conversations are meant to be fun and organic, not perfect performances. Embrace the little mishaps and laugh them off. Trust me, the more you can let go of that fear and just be yourself, the more natural and enjoyable your conversations will become. Step 2. Read the room. Okay, now that we've tackled the fear factor, let's talk about reading the room. This step is crucial because it helps you tailor your approach to the specific context and person you're dealing with. Think about it. You wouldn't start a conversation the same way at a raging party as you would at a formal business meeting, right? The tone, the topics, and the overall vibe would be completely different. That's why it's so important to pick up on those subtle cues and adjust your conversation style accordingly. For example, let's say you're at a casual backyard barbecue. The atmosphere is relaxed, people are laughing and chatting about their weekends or the latest Netflix binge. In this scenario, you'd want to keep things light and fun, maybe lead with a joke or a funny story to break the ice. But what if you're at a work conference or a networking event? In that case, you'd want to dial it back a little and take a more professional approach. Start with a friendly introduction and a relevant question about their line of work or the event itself. And let's not forget about nonverbal cues. Body language can often speak louder than words, so pay attention to things like posture, eye contact, and facial expressions. If someone seems closed off or disinterested, it might not be the best time to dive into a deep conversation.
No, this is where you zip it.
On the flip side, if they're leaning in, making eye contact and nodding along, that's a green light to keep the conversation flowing. The key here is to be adaptable and read the room. Don't try to force a conversation that clearly isn't vibing with the situation or the person you're talking to. Instead, be observant, pick up on those subtle cues, and adjust your approach accordingly. Step 3. Find common ground. All right, you've conquered your fear and you've read the room like a pro. Now it's time to find that magical common ground that'll take your conversation from meh to yeah. Think about it. When you first meet someone, there's a brief period of sizing each other up, trying to find that one thing you can both connect with. And once you hit on that shared interest or experience, boom, the conversation just flows so much more naturally. So, how do you uncover that common ground? Well, my friends, it all comes down to being a stellar observer and an even better listener. First up, observation. Pay attention to the little details that might give you a clue about someone's interests or passions. Maybe they're wearing a band t-shirt or carrying a book you've read. Or perhaps you notice a fun accessory or a quirky piece of jewelry that sparks your curiosity. Use those little cues as conversation starters. Hey, I love that shirt. Have you seen them live before? Oh, I just finished that book last week. What did you think about the ending? See how easy that is? You've already got something to bond over, and the conversation practically leads itself from there. But observation alone isn't enough. You've also got to be an active listener, picking up on those tiny nuggets of information that the other person drops in conversation. Maybe they mention a hobby or a recent trip they took. Latch onto those tidbits and use them to dig deeper and find even more common ground. Oh, you're into rock climbing? That's so cool. I've always wanted to try that. Where's your favorite spot to climb around here? Boom, just like that, you've established a connection and opened the door for even more engaging conversation. And don't be afraid to put yourself out there a little too. Share your own interests and passions and see if they resonate with the other person. You might be surprised to find that you both have a deep love for obscure Swedish metal bands or an obsession with collecting vintage lunchboxes. The key here is to be curious, observant, and genuinely interested in the other person. When you approach conversations with an open mind and a willingness to find those points of connection, you'll be amazed at how quickly even the most awkward interactions can turn into genuine, enjoyable exchanges. Step 4. Ask open-ended questions. All right, so you've broken the ice, you've found that sweet spot of common ground, and the conversation is flowing smoothly. But how do you keep that momentum going and take things to the next level? 2 words: open-ended questions. These bad boys are the secret sauce for turning a casual chat into a deep, meaningful connection. Unlike those boring yes or no questions that just lead to dead ends. Open-ended questions encourage the other person to elaborate, share more details, and really open up. Think about it. If you ask someone, "How was your weekend?" they might just say, "Fine." And then you're stuck in awkward silence limbo. But if you ask something like, "What did you get up to over the weekend?" suddenly you've opened the door for them to share stories, anecdotes, and maybe even a few personal insights or perspectives. And that's the real power of open-ended questions. They give you a glimpse into the other person's thoughts, feelings, and experiences. They help you build a deeper understanding and connection beyond just the surface-level chit-chat. Now you might be thinking, but what if I run out of questions to ask? Don't worry, my friend, I've got you covered. The key is to stay present and engaged in the conversation, actively listening for those little nuggets or details that you can then use to spark new lines of inquiry. For example, let's say the person mentions that they recently went on a trip. Instead of just saying, "Oh, cool," you could follow up with something like, "That's awesome. What made you decide to go there? What was your favorite part of the trip? Did you have any funny or unexpected experiences while you were there?" See how each of those questions opens up a new avenue for the conversation to explore? And the more you can keep that back and forth going, the deeper and more meaningful the connection becomes. But it's not just about asking questions. It's also about being an active listener and responding thoughtfully to what the other person is saying. Offer your own perspectives, share related experiences, and don't be afraid to ask for clarification or more details if something piques your interest. Step 5. Keep it natural. Now, we've covered the first 4 steps to nailing that perfect conversation, overcoming the fear, reading the room, finding common ground, and asking open-ended questions. But there's one final piece of the puzzle that ties it all together, keeping it natural. You see, conversations are meant to be organic, flowing exchanges, not scripted performances or interrogations. And while having a mental toolkit of tips and tricks is awesome, you don't want to get so caught up in doing it right that you come across as robotic or insincere. The key is to strike that delicate balance between being prepared and being present. You want to be mindful of your approach, yes, but not so much that you lose that genuine human connection. So, how do you keep it natural? Well, for starters, ditch the agenda. Don't go into a conversation with a predetermined list of questions or topics you want to cover. Instead, be open and adaptable, letting the conversation unfold organically based on the other person's responses and the natural flow of the exchange. And if you ever find yourself feeling a little rusty or in need of a refresher, just come on back and revisit this video. I'll be here, your trusty conversation coach, ready to guide you through those awkward moments and help you become the ultimate social butterfly. Now go out there and work that magic.